Hello, my most awesome project managers. Those of you who are getting ready for this exam that we call the PMP exam, I hope you're doing well. It's been a while that we connected, or maybe it's been a few days. It really depends on where last you saw me. But I hope you're doing well. Today is accountability day. I'm majorly concerned with those of you who are taking the exam in the next 1 month. How has your studying been progressing? I want to ask you a very important question. Have you fixed your exam date? Have you studied all of the people domain? Have you studied all of the process domain? Have you studied all of the business domain? If the answer is, Phil, I'm still working on this, I actually need you to be done 2 weeks to your exam so you give yourself some buffer time. What do we call buffer time in risk management? A contingency reserve. I need you to give yourself 2 weeks contingency. So I don't want you saying, oh, I'm going to be done 1 week before the exam. That's not really a good way to do it. You see, this is why I don't understand when people say, I took the exam, I started studying 2 weeks ago, and I got certified in 2 weeks. Seriously, you're a bad project manager because you didn't even leave any contingency. What's the rush? Are you a speed demon? Even if you are, the speed demon should have some contingency as well. I'm not saying don't be smart about it. I'm just saying you got to have some contingency. Things happen. Okay. Anyway, today I'm going to be going through the entire exam scope with you. I also have some good news to share. I want to give a few shout outs. So let me give a shout out, first of all, to one of my students who had been studying using the immersion program. Her name is Cindy Becerra, and Cindy got certified about a week ago, aced the exam, and Cindy was very kind to give some feedback. I want to share the feedback that I got from Cindy. So, Cindy's advice for the exam is do not overstudy. Don't overstudy. And she says, instead of studying volume, instead of overthinking it, she said, you should study based on the mindset. What would the PM do next? That's what she said the exam is made of. What should the PM do next? She said, I'm glad I reviewed your PM cheat sheet and read over the mindset sections. So, for those of you who are on my program or who have the book, you probably understand what Cindy's talking about. Cindy's talking about this book right here called PMP Exam Immersion, right? This is for people who are getting ready for the exam. And there's a part of the immersion PDF where we focus on the mindset. So Cindy's saying you should focus on mindset. Mindset is everything. She said, had about 3 maths questions total. They were focused on pessimistic, optimistic calculations. I did use up all of my 4 hours since I took longer on certain questions, she said. And then she goes further to say, it was very mindset driven, helpful to know the different mindsets. So, I have 36 mindset mantras. You can find them on YouTube. You just type in PMP exam mindset mantras, it'll come up with the mindset mantras I created, and there are 36 of them, and they'll help you as you study. He said, I could determine what the correct approach would be, and knowing the processes helped answer the question, where are we in the process? So for those of you that have not spent time going over the 49 processes and knowing them very well, I'm not saying cramming their names or their inputs and outputs, no, but just knowing what you're doing in the process and where the process is on the timeline or in the grand scheme of things, what happens first, what happens next, that will greatly help you, Cindy says. Several questions focused on the different approaches, predictive, agile, hybrid, how to make sure to read the questions thoroughly, and at times, several times, to make sure I didn't rush my answer. Overall, half agile, half predictive. It's interesting. So you cannot afford to leave predictive on the back burner. There was a time that it seemed like predictive was going away, but seems like PMI upped the ante, and now we have a whole lot of predictive focus as well. All right. So that's that from Cindy. Huge shout out to you once again, Cindy. And I also want to give a shout out to one of my friends from the past, blast from the past. I did a project management training event way back at Sodexo. And one of my friends in the class, Michelle Coswell, all of a sudden pops up on LinkedIn, and Michelle is a PMP. And the cool thing is that Michelle said she had been studying using my 40 days to PMP exam success curriculum. So a huge shout out to you, Michelle. I'm really excited. You know, when I come across friends, blast from the past, who have done the exam, and I even had no idea. I had no idea anyone I knew from Sodexo was preparing for the PMP. So that gave me a lot of excitement. So well done, Michelle. Hopefully you can end up being a mentor and coach of others. Same for you, Cindy, and help them get to dry land, because that's what it's all about. Right? Teamwork makes the dream work. All right. So I said today is an accountability session. I am very curious to know what you've been doing with your PMP studying. Some of you say, "Oh, Phil, I'm so tired every day. I can barely study." That's not a good enough excuse. you you have to apply yourself, you know. Otherwise, it just takes longer and it keeps going on and on and on. For those of you who haven't met me, I'll introduce myself real quick. My name's Phil. I've been a PMP since '05. Going to be celebrating my 20 years as a PMP. Can you imagine that? Oh my goodness. 20 years as a PMP. And since I got certified, I've been helping people worldwide through my organization called Praizion, train everyone from the Army and NASA and the FBI and many other organizations across the world. And I would love to help you. That's right. You right there. You looking. I'd love to help you do either of two things. Either help you get certified as a PMP or help you elevate your game after your PMP. Choose your pick. I have a leadership institute called Project Leadership Institute. You can go to projectleadershipinstitute.com. If you're tenacious, rugged, dogged, and tough, and you want to study leadership with one of the disciples of John C. Maxwell, America's leadership guru, you need to be on my program. We study leadership, we study business, we study AI, and everything in between. A whole lot of agile too. I've had a lot of guests coming to speak to us, like my buddy, Dr. Rick Brinkman. John Maxwell was our keynote speaker when we opened. So if you're looking to elevate your game, you need to be on one of my programs somewhere. Okay. Now, for today, I really want to go in on the topic of the PMP scope, the scope of the PMP, because I want to help you, those of you who are struggling with what should I do today? That is a big question I get from a lot of students. Phil, okay, I'm done with my class, but there's process groups, then there's knowledge areas, then there's Scrum, then there's Kanban, then there's the Agile Manifesto values and principles, not to mention PMBOK. Which PMBOK? Okay, I'll be nice. I'll say 7 is the PMBOK that people are able to purchase. But the PMBOK, the real PMBOK, when you talk about the culture of the PMI, ain't nobody talking about 7. People talking about 6 and 5 and 4. Now, I'm not saying those 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are still current. They're not current anymore, but 6 is still relevant. Now, you cannot find a 6th edition to buy. It's out of publication because people would have still been buying it. That thing is valuable. That thing is, I mean, I've got my copy, but I won't go there today. But I'll just say Process Groups, a Practice Guide is in print, and it has a lot of stuff from the 6th edition. And honestly, in a lot of organizations that I train till today, guess which edition they are keen on studying? Put it in the chat. I ain't going to say. But anyway, right now we're going into the enormity of the exam. I like showing newbies this because it helps newbies understand the scope of what they're going to be getting into. Those of you who are joining me on Saturday, it's actually coming up pretty quick. On Saturday, we have the Project Management Masterclass. And I would love for you to attend my next masterclass. Those of you who are like, oh, I need help. One of my students would see me on YouTube. Her name's Michelle, not the Michelle I just spoke about, but Michelle Bond. She'll see me and she'll say, I need him to start from the beginning. So what did Michelle do? Michelle ended up joining my course for the PMP, got certified about 3 years ago. My goodness, Michelle, 3 years ago. And ended up joining my Leadership Institute. But the real funny thing is she's like, I need him to start all over again. So if you're like one of those people who just sees me midstream on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, and you're like, I need him to start all over again, then you need to be in my training. Okay? Come to my training and I'll help you understand. But for now, I want to show you the enormity of the exam, and I also want to put it in perspective so that you won't feel overwhelmed. Are you ready? Let's go in. Let's go in on this stuff. Okay. If you're getting ready for the PMP exam, there are a number of things you should understand. And number one is PMI's rules of the game. This is in the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. That's right. The PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct is what you sign when you're applying for the exam to say, hey, PMI, I've read the rules. I need to behave myself. I know I need to tell the truth. I shouldn't say, I'm aspiring to be honest. No, I should be honest. So the PMI Code of Ethics has the rules of the game. Second thing you need to know for your exam, and this is huge, is agile. You got to be agile in life and in knowledge for the exam. So to really firm up your agile, you must be all over the Agile Manifesto values and principles. You also should have read the Agile Practice Guide. You also should have read about servant leadership, Agile practices. What is a team charter? Not the version in the Agile, no, not the version in the PMBOK guide, the version in the Agile Practice Guide. Because remember, there's a difference between a charter in the world of predictive and what it might contain versus a charter in the world of Agile and what it contains, like definition of done, definition of ready, cadence, and so on. Contract types is also talked about on this exam. From an Agile perspective, you got to know how that works. And then the knowledge areas. That's right. The knowledge areas from an Agile perspective. That sounds very curveballish, but I want to help those of you who don't know what knowledge areas are. I'm going to put something in the chat to help you. So let me go on down to my LinkedIn. Those of you on LinkedIn, please go to this link to download a chart that I have for you on the knowledge areas. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk about this later as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and put it in the chat. So here we go. This is a really helpful chart for anyone that has not studied the knowledge areas. Anyone who hasn't studied the knowledge areas, take a look at the link that I just shared and go onto LinkedIn, download it, and it's going to be very helpful in summarizing the knowledge areas. Okay, if we have enough time, we'll talk about knowledge areas today. All right, the other big thing you need to know for your exam is Scrum. So Scrum is an agile framework. It's the most popular agile framework used in the world today. Definitely something you need to know for your PMP exam. And those of you taking the CAPM exam, it's also important that you understand all these things I'm talking about. It's just that the questions are written differently, but a lot of the subject matter intersects. You got to understand your 353 of Scrum, Scrum Master, Product Owner, Developers, who are they, what do they do, the product backlog, the sprint backlog, the incremental, the PSI. You also need to understand the event, sprint planning, the daily Scrum, the sprint review, the retrospective, and the sprint itself, which is a container for those other events. You also need to understand as you get ready for your PMP exam, the predictive piece. The predictive piece of the puzzle is the one that makes people scratch their head the most, in my experience. So you got to understand the 5 process groups. Don't mix process groups with processes. Know them apart, right? The 10 knowledge areas, the 49 processes. There are various pages in the PMBOK 6 that I have extracted, things about benefits. You got to understand page 7. Now, if you don't have the book, it's okay, but just understand benefits, the benefits register or the benefits management plan, target benefits. All of this terminology about benefits owners and so on could be helpful. Baselines, project documents, subsidiary plans, and then going into PMBOK 7, 12 principles. Also understanding the domains and how they are not process groups, and really not worrying and stressing about them, but having a general understanding. I think it will be very helpful for you as a professional. Can you imagine being a PMP and in your organization, your CEO asks you, what is the difference between PMBOK 6 and 7? Or what is in the PMBOK 7? You should at least know its principles and domains. I have a lot of videos about this that break it down. So if you got certified eons ago and you don't know what's in PMBOK, I'd encourage you to go on down to the Praision channel and watch those videos. Moving on, there are other things that are important for your exam, and one of them is hybrid. The hybrid aspects are talked about in the Agile Practice Guide on page 26 to 30. Now, going into the knowledge areas, you'll see them begin to appear on the screen. Their integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder. I talk about these in the free chart that I just shared. If you haven't gotten the link, hey, here's the link again. Go on down to this link. It's on LinkedIn. A link on LinkedIn. That's funny. Go to LinkedIn, download it. It's going to help you. Now, let me go over these very quick. In the world of the PMP exam, the terminology revolves around knowledge areas. It's part of PMI's Holy Grail. You got integration, which is all about weaving the project together in a cohesive whole. It's about developing a charter, developing a project management plan, which weaves several aspects together. It's about effectively executing, monitoring, and controlling and closing the work by making everything move in a cohesive whole. That's integration. We have scope, like a telescope, right? You look through it, what happens? Things become clearer. Well, scope is the clarifier, right? What about schedule? Schedule is the timeline. What is cost? It's the budget, the money. You know about this. Because I want to wager, there are a lot of people who say, well, I've never been a project manager. And that's a big fat lie. That's a lie. Because if you woke up this morning and you got out of bed and you drove to work, maybe you took out the trash, maybe you cooked breakfast, and you're telling me you're not a project manager, that's not true. You're a project manager. We talk about economies of scale in project management. What is a project? It's a temporary endeavor. You drove to work. It's temporary. You don't drive to work for the rest of your life. But as you're driving to work, you're making project decisions. As you hit the freeway and you realize, uh-oh, there's a blockage in a few miles, you're able to see from the hill, then you're going to make a quick detour. That's risk management. That's also involving some scheduled decisions. And then the quality of your driving. You just got your new BM and you're driving like a maniac. You're not going to do that because you know that car's quality. Quality costs money. You see, I'm telling you, you don't understand yet, but newsflash, you are already a project manager. Some of you are just coincidentally listening to this. You're a project manager. Everyone's a PM. From the moment you're spat out, you're a PM. Even a baby ends up being a PM. Someone says, how is that? Well, the baby understands that you're taking too long. You don't bring the food quickly enough, they're going to start crying. Schedule management. It's very simple. Or you go to the store and you see your favorite figurine and you want it, you're going to demand it. That's procurement. And you know who's carrying the wallet. Let's not complicate it. Everyone's a project manager, right? right? Resources, we use resources every day. Water is a resource, right? We have other resources that we encounter daily. Resources, foods could be a resource, right? We talk about human equipment, material supplies, and facilities as resources. Communications. I dare you to tell me that you don't do this. Whether you do it in sign language, whether you do it verbally, whether you do it non verbally, you are a communicator and you manage your communications. All right. You manage the way you look at people. You don't look at people badly, like a haughty look or what an idiot kind of look. You don't do that. That's communicating. You know how to communicate. Risk, I've already talked about that. It's managing uncertainty. Procurement, I gave you the baby example. And stakeholder, even the baby knows who their stakeholders are. The baby knows the parents are the stakeholders, and the baby could place huge demands on the stakeholders. The stakeholders could also manage the baby. It really depends. But with all that said, I hope you download that free sheet. And I have a mnemonic for you. It just says, I saw six Cubans quietly rolling cigars, really puffing smoke. Now, I'm not saying go smoke yourself to oblivion. I once said this in a healthcare company. They didn't like it. I said, relax. It's just a mnemonic. I'm not saying go inhale all the smoke in the world. My goodness. Some people too serious, too serious. But anyway, this is the roadmap for the knowledge areas that you've heard a lot about in the world of the PMI. And for your exam, you got to go a step further. You actually need to understand how the knowledge areas weave together. One very good representation of this used to be in PMBOK 7. You can also find it in the, what's it called? Process Groups or Practice Guide. But what I'm going to do for you today is make it even easier. I'm going to share it with you. And oh, my good friend, Adrian. Adrian, very good to see you today. It's been a while. I hope you're doing well. Adrian says, hi, Phil. Will this class qualify for the educational hours to take the exam? Absolutely, Adrian. You know how we roll. We don't mess around. So, yeah, of course. This will qualify for you to take the exam. It's good to see you. It's been a while. Hey, Adrian, let's get it done. Let's get it done. Join the program. Let's kill this thing once and for all. This annoying little gremlin that pops up. This exam, we got to take it out this time. But for those of you on the call, I want to help you understand how to map out these process groups and knowledge areas. So I'm going to share with you in the chat a sheet from UCLA, which I know UCLA, you got this from PMBOK 6, but it's okay. But I put the link in the chat and I'm going to go over it with you really quick. All right, so let's go over the 49 process sheet. Well, I know you've seen this thing before, right? Again, it's from UCLA. You can see the link there at the top. And all PMI is saying is there's 5 process groups in project management. The mnemonic is I prefer eating mangoes chilled, initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling and closing. And on the left is the mnemonic. I saw 6 Cubans quietly rolling cigars, really puffing smoke. And then when you boil it down, for every knowledge area, you have a bunch of processes, but you really need to understand what am I doing in each process. See. So I'm going to very quickly narrate to you what happens. And those of you who've been in the world of structured project management, it'll probably make sense to you. So in integration, you develop an authorization document, you develop a plan, you direct the work, you help the team, you direct the work and you allow the team know, hey, this is what needs to be done, and you're pretty much managing it. You're facilitating it, you're leading it. Now, I'm not saying it's a carrot and sticks thing, but you are effectively persuading and influencing. Managed project knowledge is where you are taking an account of what went well and what didn't. The best way to do this is day by day, week by week, phase by phase. not at the end of the project. At the end of some projects, people say, oh, well, I guess we learned how not to do this. Let's not do it like this next time. That's the dummy's way of doing it. The smart person is going to make sure that lessons learned are shared rapidly throughout the organization so that people working on similar projects don't make the same mistakes. Monitor and control project work is about creating reports and taking a look at what has happened so far, sharing those reports across the firm. And then when you have these work performance reports, you got to send them down to the communications aspect because that's where you distribute the reports. So here's for creating the reports. This one is where you take a look at change requests coming in. This one is where you're closing out the project or phase. Moving into scope, you got to plan how to manage scope. Then you got to collect requirements. How many people know that there's a difference between requirements and scope? Let me give you an example. A requirement could be, I want my burger to be made from scratch. Think about that. And then the scope is, I got to grow the lettuce patch. I got to grow the wheat. I got to raise the cow. Sorry, my vegan friends. Oh, I got to raise the chicken. It's a chicken sandwich, right? Not a burger or whichever one it is. But you get the idea. You got to raise the creature. And then you got to go to the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean because you're not buying salt. You're making it from scratch. Now, it sounds very humorous, but think about a requirement to make something from scratch. No buying any other condiments. Just make it from scratch, custom. The requirement gives birth to a crazy amount of scope. And that's why when you understand the dynamics of scope and requirements, you're very careful the requirements that you allow the customer to put into the project. Some people, they have no idea, like, oh my goodness, why did we allow this into the project? I often say requirements beget scope. The crazier the requirements, the more the scope is going to be. And that's just the truth. So when you've collected the requirements, you got to define scope. What is in scope? What is out of scope? What are the inclusions? There's a guy, his name is Andy George. Andy George, you could find him on YouTube. And he has this video of how to make a chicken sandwich from scratch and the cost. And it cost $1,500. And it took 6 months and it tasted awful. Because he actually eats it on camera and you can just see the pain the guy's going through. But just think about it. The difference between the requirement to make a chicken sandwich from scratch and the requirement that says, anyhow you want to do it is fine, just make sure it's good. Well, you're not going to spend 6 months. You're going to spend like 1 hour max by going to the store and getting what you need. So the requirements, they could change the whole game of scope. That's really what I want you to take away. Then we create a work breakdown structure, which is a hierarchical decomposition of the project. Looks like a family tree. We're going to go into that in the training. Validate scope is your customer inspecting the deliverable. In this case, Andy tasting the chicken sandwich that tasted like garbage. And control scope is where you're preventing gold plating. Gold plating is when your team members add extras that were not part of the original scope. I know you have experience with that for sure. If not on a real project, maybe a project at home. Anyway, we won't go into that. Let's go into schedule management. Schedule management is all about creating a timeline. But one of the things that you see with the PMI, they want you to plan how to do stuff. So plan how to manage the schedule, plan how to create the schedule. Okay. For those of you just coming and asking the question, my friends on Instagram, I see you. I see you. My friends on Instagram, you need to be joining me this week, my friends. Join me this week. Go on down to hpmexam.com. You see the ticker tape right there? Join me and let's elevate your game. But anyway, what I'm sharing is in that link. But the schedule is all about defining the activities, putting them in order of occurrence, estimating how long the activities will take, putting all that together into a cohesive schedule, and preventing schedule delays. Cost management is about planning how to manage costs, estimating the individual tasks, rolling them up into a final total, and then preventing budget overruns. Quality management, this is about planning how to manage quality. Manage quality is about actually managing the quality. Now, that sounds vague. Let me be more specific. A quick lesson on quality management. Now, I'll talk about this a lot more in the class, but I think this will help a lot of you. What is quality? Fitness for use, conformance to requirements, customer satisfaction, and Kaizen, continuous improvement. When you go to your favorite restaurant and you sit down and you're given a plate of food, you are immediately, whether you like it or not, subconsciously, you are gauging the quality. You got radar in your head, measuring the salt level, measuring the flavorfulness, if there's such a word, but really just trying to see, is this what I expect? You ever been to your favorite joint and you're like, no, this is below quality. Why? Doesn't meet your expectations. It's not fit for use. It doesn't conform to requirements, perhaps, and it doesn't satisfy the customer. You ever seen someone who said, well, we did a really nice job, but the customer is so ungrateful? My friend, in this world of PMP, if it doesn't satisfy the customer, failure, project failed. You see why the job of a PM is so difficult, because you got to balance that fine line and you got to do everything possible to ensure your customer is satisfied. Because in PMI's world, the customer ain't satisfied. It doesn't matter how highly your boss thinks or how highly you think. If your customer says it ain't cool, it ain't cool. So in the world of PMI, when we talk about quality, we're talking about fitness for use, conformance to requirements, customer satisfaction, and Kaizen. We're thinking about change for the better. We're thinking about sustaining any quality initiatives. And it's so important, my friends. Okay, for those of you coming, we're going through the 4-9 process really rapidly. It never gets old. And it's one of the areas people say, it's a beast. It's eating me alive. Help. So I came on today to help you. All right. So manage quality. When you think about manage quality, you are doing things to assure customers that quality standards are being met, to assure stakeholders. Manage quality is similar to quality assurance. What is quality assurance? Checking the process. There's a difference between checking the product versus checking the process. Manage quality is checking the process. Control quality is checking the product. Moving on, my friends, going on to the resource area. We have plan resource management, planning how to manage the resources, estimating all manner of resources, acquiring the human resources, equipment, material, supplies. Develop team is all about the team, the human resources, right? Developing them, training them, coaching them. Manage team is all about leadership. I know it says manage, but it's really more about the guidance through influence and persuasion than carrot and sticks, beating people over the head. It's not that. It's not about structure and order alone. It's heavily about the leadership. Control resources is really more for the physical resources. Going on to communications, plan how to communicate. Manage communications is communicating, and monitor communications is checking to make sure your communications is good. Next, we go into risk management. Plan how to manage risk, identify the risks, do a qualitative analysis like a high, medium, low, do a quantitative risk analysis, take a look at the monetary impact of those risks using expected monetary value, EMV, and things such as that. Look at the dollar amounts. Look at the time it takes to do something, the penalty from a man-hour standpoint. That helps you with quantitative risk analysis. Plan risk responses is planning how to respond to risks. Implementing risk responses is carrying out your risk response. And monitor risks is checking to see how your risk game is going. Is it going good? Some people's risk game is flat, is bad. Some people ain't even managing risk. They just wake up and like, oh, it's happened. What? What I thought. Did you document it? No. Did you plan for it? No. What a horrible job in risk management. And honestly, there are a lot of companies, they don't have a risk register. They don't have a risk management plan. They don't even understand risk strategies. All they know one though. They know one, and they call it the wrong thing. They call it mitigation. Everything is mitigation. And everything is not mitigation. Mitigation is a reduction. Mitigation is a deliberate, intentional, in advance reduction of the impact or the probability of a risk. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they wait until the risk has happened. That's not mitigation. That's a bad reaction to a serious, now it's an issue, right? Could have been a risk if you thought about it. But when it's happened, it's no longer a risk, it's an issue. Then you got to look for a workaround. Not good. Not good. All right. You see, I'm trying to give you some real world tips for your firm. Those of you firms that are not doing risk management, I encourage you to do it. So, so important. Let's move on. We're going into procurement now. Procurement, we got a plan. Do we need to purchase anything? Conduct procurements. Well, we've agreed we need to purchase. So let's conduct procurements by putting out the RFPs, RFQs, RFIs, IFNs. And that just means request for proposal, request for bid, invitation for bid, invitation to negotiate, and things like that. You put them out and then you get a response, and then the response is weighed. You use source selection criteria to weigh who's going to be the winning bid. And then you might get into some negotiation, and you go back and forth. And some cultures, if you don't negotiate, it's actually rude. So you gotta negotiate. And then the negotiation goes on and on. Have you ever been in a do loop negotiation? I have. The negotiation goes on for forever. But eventually you come out, you select someone, and then you begin managing the procurement. Last but not least, we got stakeholder, right? You identify who could be affected by the project and who could affect the project positively or negatively. Then you plan how to engage them appropriately. You manage the engagement by actually speaking, communicating, doing all that. And then you monitor stakeholder engagement. How effective is our plan? Is it working? And there you have it. There you have it, my friends. Those of you just coming, I shared in the chat that link to UCLA. UCLA were able to grab this and put it. And honestly, I believe that they have the permission to do so because they're UCLA. So it says Project Management Institute, Guided Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide. And then it gives the necessary accolades to the PMI. And honestly, these are some of the things that excite me about the Project Management Institute. The fact that we can have 49 processes that help you manage any project. Tailor it to the project. Now, when I say help, it gives you insights, things to think about. It's truly awesome. It's truly awesome. So I applaud the PMI for their work, past, present, and even future. And that's why I always try to do my bit by being a final reviewer of the PMBOK guide. But beyond the PMBOK guide, the PMI will tell you it's a standard. You know, I hear a lot of people say, well, that PMBOK guide is so hard, it's so esoteric, it's difficult to, and they do the wrong things. It's difficult to memorize. It's like eating an elephant. It's big, but if you spend time in my class, you will be coming away understanding the content very well. You will, because I'll challenge you. Okay. So I went from almost getting mad at the PMBOK guide on my first rodeo. I was so annoyed. I went to the Mesa Library in Arizona, sat down because my awesome mentor, Mary, had given me all her books. She said, Phil, you make a good PMP. Boom. And then she gives me all the books and I get excited thinking, oh yeah, I've already done the Certified Internet Webmaster. I've done 3 of those certs. I know a little bit of Flash and Dreamweaver. That was back in the day. I'd done those exams. Those were my first professional exams, you know, exams on the web and being a webmaster and web developer. So I thought, how hard can it be? Until I went to my local library and I plopped open PMBOK guide and I was like, 7 hours. 7 hours. I couldn't make a dent. Oh my goodness. Talk about Mr. Magoo looking like an absolute punk for 7 hours. It's such a funny tale because it just shows you your understanding of organized project management can be a mystery. Never been there before. It reminds me of like organized religion. The organization of project management, honestly, it's a different world. For those of you who've been in the real world of project management and that's fine, but when it comes to organized project management and the definitions, they're very big and unwieldy. So my first 7 hours with PMBOK, I was so frustrated. I was so mad. I threw the books back into my bag and I went home feeling very defeated, beaten up. I didn't know how I was going to navigate it. I was doing it the wrong way. I was trying to read a standard, bulldoze through a standard, and use the standard as an elimination path without context. For those of you who are in that bottleneck, you want to go to Google and just type in fail family reunion project Praizion. You'll probably find my family reunion encounter. And I take the family reunion story and I spin it around the 49 processes to make it easy for people because I was there, just like you, like a deer in the headlights, clueless, not knowing what I was going to do next. Imagine putting 7 hours into studying and you just get so defeated. You got to go home and you got to go sleep because the PMBOK beat you up. And that's why in the years that followed, when I got more and more proficient, I decided I was going to help people. I wrote this book called PMP Exam Immersion. This is for the PMP exam. Those of you coming on the program are going to get this book. I also started working on audio because I realized not everyone likes reading a book. My goodness, some people are bored out of their mind reading a book. So I created this project management audio digest, and you hear my voice and the voice of my co-trainer Emily and many other voice actors. You see, one of my pet peeves is boring. Oh my goodness. Let me talk about that for a second. You ever been to a PMP training course and let's be honest, you ever fallen asleep? Let me be honest. Let me look you in the eye. You ever fallen asleep in a PMP course? Don't lie. It wasn't mine. But I know some of you, right there on your machine, you're bored out of your mind. I feel sorry for those people, which is why I want you to come for my training because I will keep you on your toes. It's interactive. It's engaging. It's not one of those where you are and adjust yourself. And no matter how hard you try, you're not enough. Not my class. Which is why I create interesting materials like this audio. I have voice actors, voice talents, whole drama productions in this. And you're going to get this as part of my training program 20 hours of audio, 20 hours, 20 hours. And we ain't talking about just like AI blabbing away at you. No, this is your buddy Phil and a cast of actors acting out PMBOK. You're also going to get this. It's called Project Management Essentials. That is for the predictive piece. And you're also going to get this one. It's called Agile Principle Run and Cut. I wrote this with my Agile coach, my buddy Roy, who you will also encounter in the course in video. And perhaps, who knows, maybe you might encounter him live one of these days. It really depends. But if you are looking for a training program that is not boring you out of your mind, or PMP is so hard for you like it was for me, my first 7 hours, absolute disaster. Going down to the link, you see the ticker tape below, PMP stuff, hpmexam.com. Go sign up for the program, because not only will you have a vehicle to get certified, you also have a friend for life who will be there to help you traverse life after the PMP. PMP is great. It's the beginning. After you get certified, there's another world out there. But we'll talk about that when you get there. For now, why don't we go back to our initial discussion, because I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg. We have a few more things to discuss. If you remember, I showed you that big old map, right? But beyond the map, we need to touch on a few other things. And I can appreciate the fact that some of you are either at lunch, or you just got back from lunch, or you're on a conference call. You're like, Phil, why you go live during my conference call? I can't be on the call. I know, I understand. We're going to get done here very shortly. So I gave you a very good breakdown of the world of predictive, but I don't want you to leave without giving you some illustration and some understanding about agile. Okay. So let's jump into the discussion about the exam, and then I will get into some agile musings with you. And those of you who are watching live, it's always a great opportunity for you to ask me questions. So if you're watching live July 30th, you need to ask questions. Take advantage of it, okay? Let's jump into the next section of our study. So I want you to be aware that the exam is very straightforwardly broken down into people, process, business. Either you're good at it or you're not. You either got people down pat or you ain't got down pat. Process, same thing. Business, same thing. Which is why when people say, oh, Phil, I don't know where I am in the PMP process, I'm like, you're either in people, done, moving on to process, or you ain't done with people. Then get good with people, then move to process, and then move to business. This is how the exam is, straight up, simple. There's no need to confuse the issue, right? Now, when it comes to people, process, and business, you also have an agile view to people, an agile view to process, an agile view to business. And then you have a predictive view to people, a predictive view to process, and a predictive view to business. Now, people might argue, no, people are just people are just people. Well, not really. The way you interact with a team in an agile environment is very different, because the team is responsible for the integration. Whereas in the world of predictive, the project manager is responsible. So in the world of predictive, we have a straight line going from A to B. We're going to plan everything. It's all planned to the T, and it happens like that. Whereas in the world of agile, there's some twists and turns. We start off and we might be thrown off course, but we get back on course, and there are twists and turns, and there's a lot of experimentation. That's how agile is. It's like cooking a new dish. Every step of the way, you're asking, oh, have I gone off? Does it still taste good? And then maybe you have people working with you to taste the food and say, oh, no, it tastes good. It's okay, until you get to the end. That's how the world of agile is. But I want to demystify what agile is. A lot of people say, well, I think agile is a methodology. No, don't say that. Agile is not a methodology. Agile is first and foremost a mindset. And I believe that so much, I wrote a book called Agile is a Mindset. You can find that book on Amazon. A lot of people argue and say, well, if it was just a mindset, all you need to do is just think agile and you're going to be agile. Well, of course, we're not saying that. But as a man thinks, so is he. It starts off in the mind. Everyone knows this. Well, not everyone, obviously. Some people don't. But you got to first think agile. So I say agile is a mindset that catalyzes the ability to pivot to the ever-changing world around you. That's what agile is. Starts off in the mind. And I say the ABCs of agile: attitude, it's a mindset. Attitude starts in the mind. It may translate into body language, behavior. Attitude, behavior, culture. Attitude, A, B, behavior, C, culture. The mindset is where it all begins. And that's why the awesome 17 individuals who put together the Agile Manifesto, which I'm about to show you, they understood. They understood. In order to be agile, you need to have a true north. Now, your true north is envisioned through the values. 4 values. We're going to talk about these right now. So let's jump into that mindset, the attitude, behavior, culture, right? Because when we talk about agile, let's not get it twisted. A lot of people, they have a misconception that, I guess agile is a framework. No, it's not a framework. And no matter how much you think it's a framework, it doesn't change that. It's not a framework, right? It's not a framework. It's a mindset. I really want you to take that away, because there are a lot of people that are doing agile. They're doing these frameworks. And they think that by doing the framework or by being in Jira, this is the worst of all. Some people are in Jira and they think, oh, we're in Jira, so we're agile. No, you're not. No, you're not. But anyway, let me show you what it's all about. Let's jump in. So if you haven't been to the Agile Manifesto website, agilemanifesto.org, I encourage you to go there. You read Jim Highsmith's account about the Agile Manifesto, which I find very interesting. It's a very interesting story. He's a very good storyteller, very good at writing. And it's just so much fun to read. But these 17 anarchists, they got together, and I say that in the funnest way possible. They decided they had had enough. Enough was enough, and we're going to work together on some ideas, the future of getting stuff done. And it says, we are uncovering better ways of developing product by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value. So let's break that down. Uncovering more efficient and effective ways of developing product. Initially, it said software, but throughout the years, people began to see, nah, this is beyond software. This is product. This is everything. It's a great true north mindset. And through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Think about that for a second. Through living on planet Earth, what have you come to value more than what? Well, through living on planet Earth, I have come to value water over food. Did I say water instead of food? I didn't. Think about it. It's not an either or, it's a value thing. You get what I'm saying? Valuing people and how they interact versus the big old manual that says thou shalt. Because people could read the manual and be forced to follow it. But in their heart, they really hate it. It reminds me of a student who was in a class and trying to air their views, and the teacher said, hey, you, Johnny, stand up. Johnny stood up and he said, I'm standing up physically, but in my heart, I'm sitting down. Can you imagine how annoyed the teacher was? But it just goes to show you that in this world of agile, we need to value people and their interactions. And that's what your exam is based on. Understanding the psychology of teams. You don't beat people over the head with a stick. You don't be a Theory X manager. You don't be full on lower right quadrant of the Hersey Blanchard model every single day in every situation. It ain't going to work. So we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. It sounds like a wise person. Working product over comprehensive documentation. We're valuing having a working product more than comprehensive documentation. We did not in any way say documentation is bad, as alleged by a lot of agile naysayers, right? Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. We're saying we value collaborating with the customer rather than pointing to a contract, and responding to change over following a plan. We value responding to change, and you should value responding to change. What if you had an elaborate plan to drive from here to work? Midway, you hit traffic. You need to do something differently. You need to be agile. Ditch the plan, respond. That's all this is saying. Don't be a Kodak. Don't be a Polaroid. Don't be a Toys R Us. Don't be an Enron. In more ways than one. And you better not be a Blockbuster. Very soon I might add Redbox to the stack. How many red boxes do you see around you these days? Oh my goodness. So you got to be agile. You got to pivot to the ever changing market around you, the ever changing circumstances around you. Let's move on. Going into the Agile Manifesto principles, your 12 principles, I'm going to break these down very succinctly by giving you my high level interpretation. Number one, be obsessed with the customer, right? Deliver value to them early. Number two, welcome changes even late. It could help the customer. Number three, deliver working product frequently. Get your customers engaged, the sooner the better, and get value into their hands. Number four, work together daily for the greater good of the firm and of the project. Number five, build projects around motivated individuals. It's common sense. So get the right people on the bus. In the words of my mentor, John Maxwell, you got to get the right people on the bus, and you got to get them in the right seats on the bus. And trust them to get the job done. Don't micromanage them, right? Number six, wherever possible, where it is appropriate, face-to-face conversation gives a higher level of engagement, value, and clarity under most circumstances. Now, it may not be efficient to fly all the way from New York to come see your buddy Phil, but maybe it is, depending on the stakes. And that one, number six, is the one that I've got the most consternation from a lot of current day workers. They're like, Phil, I don't agree. Because one of the things I do in my class is I ask my students to critique this. And I get a lot of critiques about number six. We can use Zoom. Or they tell me in order to effectively swarm, they need to be geographically dispersed because they need to be on different machines. So that's interesting. Swarming is actually a term in Agile, by the way. But working products is a primary measure of progress. In the world of Agile, we measure by, are you done? Not what percent complete are you? No, that's predictive. You see what I'm saying? Number 8, Agile processes promote sustainable development. Don't kill the team. Work at a constant pace, but not at a breakneck pace. Number 9, continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. Number 10, keep it simple. Keep it simple, sir. Keep it simple, sister. Keep it simple, students. Number 11, the best architectures, requirements, and designs are from self-organizing teams. And number 12, at regular intervals, check to see how you could improve the process. All right. And those are the 12 Agile Manifesto principles. Again, something that you should be aware of for your exam. So for those of you who are just coming, I am going over accountability. That's number 1. If you are my student, I want you to chat into me how your studying is going, what you have accomplished in the past week, and what you intend accomplishing this week. It's like an agile daily stand up, if you will. I'm also curious to know how your studying is going if you just got on the bandwagon because there's so many things. I shared my experience. The first 7 hours with PMBOK were horrendous. So if you are looking to get certified and you need help and assistance, you need to go on down to that ticker tape because this week I'm starting an 8-week program. 8 weeks. So I ain't fixing to rush anyone. The crazy, oh, you can get certified in 2 weeks. You can get certified in a day. I ain't into all that. I'm all about solidly understanding the content so that when you're done with the class, you show up for your best project management experience ever. I'm not about cramming, I'm about absorbing the content and the ideologies from an agile perspective, from a predictive perspective, from a hybrid perspective. And that's why I'm inviting you. That's right, you who's watching. I'm inviting you to join my 8-week project management masterclass for the PMP exam. All you need to do is go on down to hpmexam.com. And when you go to hpmexam.com, you'll find the opportunity. But in the next few days, the class will start. I want you to be prepared. So why don't you join right now so that we can begin some dialogue and so that I can help you navigate the terrain. All right, my friends on Instagram, my friends on YouTube, on Facebook, thank you very much for joining me. Remember, all the links that I've shared, they will lead you to assets that can help you in your PMP game right there. Okay. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. We got a question from our friend earlier about the credits for this course. Yeah, you get 35 PDUs because it's an 8-week program. And there's also a lot of online quizzes, tests, mock exams that you will be carrying out every step of the way. Okay. Thank you, my friends. A shout out to those of you on the PMP exam radio show who come through on that platform, on Spotify, on Apple, on Amazon, wherever you might be listening to me from. Thank you for joining. I just want to make it very clear the website one more time. So it's hpmexam.com. Let's go over there and I'll just talk a little bit about the program so that you understand what is in store. There's so many awesome opportunities in this program to learn all that you've heard about but never really had a coach to take you through. This will be an opportunity for handholding. And for some of you who are already PMPs, but you don't really understand the content, you are also able to join. You'll get PDUs, 35 PDUs. If you join the program and you'll be able to learn everything from scratch and you'll be able to sit in as a mentor. Just truly awesome. But anyway, hpmexam.com, it's starting on the 3rd. If you're watching this after the fact, always go to hpmexam.com because you'll be able to see when the latest and greatest training is. Some of the things you're going to get from this training session, like I said, you're also going to get a lifetime access to our PMP course. You'll also get training on life after the PMP exam. You will be in a session with me for 8 weeks learning. You'll get agile books, predictive books, application assistance, and we'll support you towards your exam with mentoring, coaching, and advice. So once you get on the program, pretty much you got lifetime access to a course. There's no excuse. We've taken the excuses off the table for you. All right. So why don't you go on down there to hpmexam.com, and I look forward to seeing you in the program. Those of you who are already certified, who want to know more about the leadership endeavors that I'm working on right now, going down to projectleadershipinstitute.com. Thank you very much. I wish you all the very best in your journey. Remember, PMP prowess, it develops daily. It does not develop in a day. Contrary to what you hear, I got certified in 3 hours. I'm not talking about the exam. Some people come up with all sorts of tales. And while I don't say people aren't telling the truth, I just say not everyone is the same. You cannot measure your performance with someone else because you don't know. Those people, maybe in the real world, they truly have a ton of experience using PMBOK guide processes in their daily work. So it's unwise to say, well, Phil did it in two days, so I'm going to try to do it in 2 days. It's not very smart to see things like that. Okay. If you have any questions, my friends, I'm here for you. I look forward to hearing from you. I wish you all the very best in your journey. Keep on trucking daily, steadily, and before you know it, you're going to get to your definite chief aim as a PMP. You take care and all the very best. Bye for now.